Okay, now I'm officially ready. Hi Recub, hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for making it to another Tippa study stream. Let's go! So, I don't know why my thing is capturing the way it is, so let's do that. And yeah, so I was like, I don't know if my exam is Monday or Tuesday, and I'm like, I swear it's Tuesday. It's actually today. So I'm like, oh, I didn't really get to study over this weekend. I was focusing on other things and then doing assignments. So I'm like, we'll do it. So we basically have to like cram like this later half, okay? I forget there's like 3 other people on the study guide, so forgive me other people. But let's see where we last left off. My exam is at 7, so right now it's almost 5 p.m. in Bearcat Mountain time. I need to end a little bit before 7, so let's say we have like an hour and 45 minutes, okay? Yeah? Yeah. But hopefully we'll make it through. We only have about 18. We have about 18 pages, so we can do it, right? They're all like pictures anyway. We're gonna be great, and then we'll try to review the study guide to points where I'm like, I didn't really feel that comfortable about it, and then kind of go from there, okay? Anyway, every cub, let's get to it. Let me say my hellos and then we'll get to it. My bad. Let me also know if the music is loud, because on my side it's showing a little bit higher than usual, but they're having a moment in the song right now, so I don't want to interrupt that. But anyway, hi Robo, hi. Let's go. The steady emote. Let's go. Hi Rip, hi. I'm so sorry. I saw you were streaming, but I was at work. Boo. How's the zoo? How is building something? How did that go? I hope you had lots of fun. Thank you for joining. Oh, hi, Tippa stream? Yes, hi, it's me. I'm so sorry. I meant to put out a schedule, but again, I was also at work. Also, let me give you a shout out because we might have some plans in the making, so that's super excited. Collab. And then also let me give a shout out to Selleck. Hi Selleck, hi. Welcome. Hi Seth, by the way, hi. Welcome. Tippa cheer. So many cheers. Wow. So embarrassed, so flustered. Hi Pass, by the way, hi. Welcome. Congrats on making it to Tuesday. Oh, thank heckin' goodness. Oh my gosh, Monday was so cool. Hi Pass, hi. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear. Happy birthday to you. And hi Tamika, hi, welcome. Hi Let's as well, Bearcat hug to you. Oh, the biggest one. Oh. Wow. The Discord might be getting pings a lot more for the collab coming up, so feel free to mute if needed. Oh, I'm always on busy status for the very reason of I just don't look at pings, so forgive me. But alright, we are going to get started. So we're actually following up with our last study stream that we had with Biomechanics. Oh, that's a new color. Hold on. My OBS is flashing orange. I've never seen it flash orange. Please. OBS, please. Hopefully the stream goes well. If not, Gomena sorry. Gomena everything in the world to express my apologies right now, because holy heck. Yeah, no problem. You're welcome for the shoutouts. So let's get started. So right now we're going to continue on about biomechanics. let's actually skip this. We'll kind of just briefly talk about like, ooh, the pressure in the intervertebral disc, and basically understand that it's going to be lower when you sit and higher when you stand. A lot of, basically, the load on your spine, and in particular, this aspect of it, like the nucleus pulposal and the annulus fibrosus, which is going to be surrounding the nucleus pulposal, which is going to be, ooh, right here, sorry. The nucleus pulposal is this jelly-like center, and the annulus fibrosus is going to be like the ring that surrounds it, and that's going to be the little, what they call the IB disc, or the intervertebral disc in between our spine. So that allows us to have a lot of the combination of like stabilization and allow us to like handle compressive forces and whatnot. We can briefly talk about that, I suppose. So the annulus fibrosus, which again is the thing that's going to be circling around this, is going to help provide stabilization for the spine. Again, it circles around the nucleus pulposal, so it's going to actually serve as like a containment center. It feels like an SCP. This circular surface is going to allow for multi-directional movement. So yes, your spine, to some degree, I guess, I wouldn't recommend it. It can shift forward, backwards, left, right, etc. This jelly-like surface, not jelly-like, but this rounded surface as well is going to help provide resistance against excessive distraction, which is like a pulling apart motion of the spine. Shearing, which is like if you put two fists on top of each other and the top one or bottom one is rubbing against each other, so a little bit of friction, that's shearing. And torsion is a similar thing, where if you put two fists on top of each other but you're twisting. The annulus fibrosus is going to help provide resistance on those three motions: distraction, shearing, and torsion. And as you see, again, this is our disc in between the spine, and it's going to provide as a shock distributor and as well as absorption, but that's going on to the nucleus pulposal purposes. So really what's going to happen here is that this little jelly-filled center, our jelly-filled donut, is going to help with absorption and retention of water. There's this whole thing, and I forget what it is exactly, but what was it? I think they say you're shorter in the morning, or are you taller in the morning? Something like that. I wish I could look it up. But during some time of the day, you're shorter or like taller. I'm pretty sure you're shorter in the morning. And then as you stand up and all the nutritions get going, then you're taller, or the height that you are normally associate yourself with. Taller in the morning? My memory and my horrible 50-50 guessing. But yeah, that's actually the reason why, because of the nucleus pulposal that we see here. The annulus fibrosus is a shock distributor, while the jelly-filled center is going to be our force transmission, and it's going to help distribute and equalize any stress that we're getting in any of the directions, whether that's forward, back, or side to side. It's going to actually allow for the permitting of like a rocking type of movement. So like, like rocking back and forth, maybe you're antsy or something like that. So yeah. The pressure on these two things in particular are going to increase when we stand, and increase even more if we have a load. If we're holding like a big bulky box in front of us, we're putting more compression on our spine in comparison to when we're sitting or we're in a reclined position where there's just not that much pressure. Yeah. By the way, I just want to also apologize because I know I have such a limited time. I'm so sorry if I'm like speaking a mile a minute. I am also dying. So let's talk about cervical flexion and the biomechanics for that. So this is kind of breaking the cervical spine into 3 different segments. So we have the atlanto-occipital atlanto-occipital joint, the OA joint, which is going to be the joint at the very top with articulating with the occiput, which is our skull, and the atlas. Yes, hence the name occipital atlanto joint. What's going to happen is that as we bring ourselves into a cervical flexion, or if we bring our neck forward like this, what's going to happen with that first joint, which is going to be, you can see it right here, this joint is going to follow where the head is going. So your head is moving forward, so the roll is going to move forward. You're going to have an anterior roll and a posterior glide. The reason why you're having opposites is because the whole concept of concave convex roll, which is something I don't want to necessarily get into too much detail, but basically, if a concave surface moves on a convex surface, it will roll and glide in the same direction. And if a convex surface moves on a concave, it means that it's going to have an opposite roll and glide. So the reason why we're having an opposite roll and glide for the OA joint specifically is because because the occiput, or our skull, is a convex surface that's gliding onto this concave atlas. You see how the concave surface is a little dipped in? And then you see how this is more of like a bump right here? That bump is moving when we go into cervical flexion, hence the anterior roll and posterior glide. Now for the AA joint, it doesn't actually do too much. It actually provides more contribution during lateral flexion, but we just mentioned it just to mention it, I guess. Am I right? So for the AA joint, the atlanto-axis joint, right? Heck, the AA joint, these two bones right here, when we move forward, these two bones, or the joint, is gonna it's going to tilt forward, or it's going to tilt anteriorly. And so with that, now we're kind of like, oh, okay, if you move forward, you go forward. Wow, so amazing, am I right? Yeah. Now let's talk about the rest of our cervical spine. Remember, we have cervical vertebrae. So now looking at this, we have our C2 to C7. Remember, C7 is going to be that bump you feel in the back of your neck. It's one of the most prominent vertebrae we can find, and a really cool landmark as well. So what's going to happen is that we move forward. What's going to happen is that the C2, C7 facet joints, which are right here, these in-betweens that you see are sliding, are going to be sliding into an upward or upglide. And this upglide motion is going to consist of a superior and anterior glide. So it's moving up and to the front, up and to the front, up and then to the front. You see? All of C2 to C7. And so again, it's just going to follow the direction of the neck. So just kind of keeping that in mind. Looks like my neck naturally. You gotta fix your posturing, my dude. You gotta do some, I have to find the exercise. Hold on. Hi, Ashi. Hi. Welcome. A gamer who studies is called a nerd. Never ending reading. Duh. Thank you for your wise words. I really appreciate the insight. Hold on. I forgot I should also put a timer really quick. So let's put it for, it's almost 5 right now, so 5, an hour and 45 minutes. Alright, so we'll set the timer now. Wall angels. I think that's good for the neck, right? Or no, it's good for rounded shoulders. What's good for forward head posture? Do some shoulder blades squeezes back, my dude. I can't think of exercises right now. This is coming from my experience in the clinic or when I was shadowing. I haven't actually learned formal exercises right now, so I'm sorry, SD. I'm sorry you're tired, but I hope work is treating you super, super well. Matt says, grate your teeth, I'm kicking you in the shit. Why? I don't think that's motivation. This has been the longest workday. I'm so sorry. My workday was also kind of because our internet was down for about 3 hours. So I was like, what am I doing? I ended up running errands for my manager, so I was being paid on the clock. So I guess that's okay. Anyway. So yes, this is just another image looking at the OA joint, the occipital atlanto joint, with again, convex cranium, our skull right there, gliding onto the atlas, which is our first cervical, there's my mouse, and that's going to be our concave surface. Excuse me. We have to understand that the OA joint, what we see here, is going to be the only convex concave surface or structure that we're going to see in the entire spine, which is actually crazy. The rest of our vertebrae are going to be a planar, which means that we're not really concerned with rolls and glides. Even with the AA joint that we were talking about, we were not really talking about rolls and glides. We were talking about tilts. And again, it makes sense that if we're bringing our neck forward, the AA joint is also going to follow suit with that osteokinematic or that motion as well. So let's talk about the opposite. Let's talk about cervical extension, okay? So for cervical extension, we're going to talk about the three same aspects of the OA joint, the AA joint, and the C2 and C7 joints. So for the OA joint, again, it is a convex surface moving on a concave surface. So we're going to have an opposite rolling glide. Remember, the roll is going to follow the osteokinematics. So if we're rolling backwards, if we're going backwards, moving backwards, we're also going to roll backwards. Or back, a fancy anatomical way of saying backwards or towards our back is the word posterior. So that is why the OA joint is a posterior roll, and because it's opposite, because the concave convex roll, it's going to have an anterior glide. So again, OA joints are only concave convex surface, so now we're going to move to the AA joint, which doesn't have a rolling glide. It's going to have a tilt, and for this tilt, it's going to go posteriorly, a posterior tilt, which makes sense as you're bringing your head back. You're also bringing the rest of the spine back with you, and we can see right here as well, it's tilting backwards. And everything else right here for C2 to C7, that's going to be your down glide, and we understand that our down glide is going to be inferior and a posterior glide. So we're going down and back, down and back. Hey, Joy, huh? I didn't think I need to go just yet. Ashri, I'm helping too? Yeah, Ashri, I'm gonna put you out of your hecky misery. Where's my gun emote? No, but I'm honestly sorry that you're having a rough day. I'm sorry. Just think about it. It's almost over. Probably. Maybe. It's funny to poke at. It's so helpful. Yeah. So. We talked about flexion and extension. So now let's go to a weird concept. Rotation. So rotation again is when we're turning our head left and right. Left, right. Left, right. Left, right. That kind of motion is cervical rotation. So now for our OA joint's no longer contributing. Our OA joint actually has nothing to do with this rotation, but this is where our AA joint comes in and shines. So for the biomechanics for the AA joint more specifically, it's going to have an ipsilateral posterior glide with contralateral anterior glide. So that's going to sound incredibly intimidating. It's like, what were all those words? What were all those words? So it's saying right here at the AA joint, our atlas and our axis, these two joints are going to have a posterior glide on the same side. So if you're rotating your head to the right, and it's going to be the same side, that right side, a right posterior glide with a contralateral anterior glide. Contralateral just means the opposite side, while ipsilateral means the same side. So if you're turning your head to the right, let's put this all together again. It's going to be a same side posterior glide because again, our head is going towards the back, and it's going to have the opposite side. So our left side of our spine, it's going to have a contralateral left side anterior glide. So that's going to the front. I guess a other way to put it or visualize it is that if you have your fist in front of you and you put them together, your left fist, your right fist. Now, if you bring the fist, I guess you can rotate it, but maybe it's better if you just slide the right hand back. When you're sliding the right hand back, you see it's going posteriorly or towards the back, while the front is going to the front. The left is going to the front, or in this case, we'll be rotating to the front because we're talking about cervical rotation. That might be a better way to visualize it, but that's what's really happening with your spine, or cervical spine in particular, when you are rotating. But hi, Zach. Hi. Welcome. I'm sorry, I was on a tangent. I'm I can't stop. I can't. But yeah, welcome. We're just, cramming because I have an exam in 2 hours, so I'm gonna try to get through this, okay? Okay. So with that in mind, that's your AA joint. So for the C2 and C7, we're talking about how it does the up glides and down glides. So what did we say for cervical flexion? Cervical flexion is going to have up glides because it's going to be moving superior and anterior, while extension, while we put our neck back, remember our neck is going, or the C2 to C7 joints are going into a down glide, and down glide again is going to be going in what direction, or what two directions? Posterior and inferior. So it's going to the back and it's going down. So now let's talk about cervical rotation. For C2 and C7, we're going to have the ipsilateral down glide. What did we say ipsilateral was? Same side. So if we're rotating again to the right, I might be a little biased to my right side. It's going to be the same side of the spine. It's going to be down sliding right here, or down gliding, I apologize, with the opposite side. So in this example, the right rotation, the left side is going to be going up, and you can actually see in this image right here, it's not like dramatic, but you see slight downwards, and then the opposite side is going to go upwards. Okay? Hi Garland, hi, welcome. No, go on. I'm just appreciating how much you look at skeletons. I know, I can't wait to go back to muscles though. No, not for anything. I'm a little shy as one. Oh no, I'm sorry. I feel it in my bones. I knew you're always a little shy. I joke. Last minute tipper grind, I am... I didn't want to do it to them, but I had to, and I had to do it to myself. I don't want to cram, but I also want to have like a vague idea of what I'm doing. So let's continue to get into it, shall we? All right. So another motion that we could do with our neck or cervical spine is lateral flexion. So lateral is just going off to the side, so either like this or like this. So it's like side bending, or bringing your ear to your shoulder. So we need to understand the biomechanics and what's going to be happening at the joints in each aspect again. So let's talk about the OA joint. So the OA joint is going to have an ipsilateral roll and a contralateral glide. So let's go to the left now, because my right side is a little tired. So if I'm bending and bringing my ear to my neck, I'm laterally flexing to the left. Again, it might look like to your right because I'm mirrored and blah blah blah, so I apologize. I promise I know my directions. So what's gonna happen here at the OA joint is that it's gonna have an ipsilateral roll and a contralateral glide, because remember, it's still a convex surface throughout this whole entire process that is moving. It is our skull that is moving rather than our spine, and then the spine follows afterwards in this concave convex roll. So if we go to the left, it's gonna have the same roll, and then we're gonna have an opposite glide, and you might be able to see it a little bit here. Ta-da! That's the Tipalong neck anatomy. I wonder how much vertebra Tipalong has. You think maybe double or triple? And it goes wow wow wow. If I had time, I would get Tipalong out here, but I do not have that time, unfortunately. And plus, it'll take me like 50 minutes. Maybe more like 15, but you know. Anyway, but I messed up with what I was saying earlier. I thought, so the AA joint actually does not participate with lateral flexion whatsoever. It does nothing. It just kind of follows the OA joint. But there's no tilting with it, so there's no contribution for the AA joint. But for C2 and C7, we're still going to have our up glide and down glide. So if we're going to the side, we're going to have an ipsilateral or same side down glide, which makes sense. Think of like a spring at this point, and you're going towards the left. Well, everything is going to be down gliding or going down on the side that you're bringing the spring to, or in this case, your neck to, while the opposite side is going to up glide. So look, this person is leaning to their right. There's the arrows pointing down right here, and then you see up the opposite side is doing the up glide. So let's actually now move on from the cervical spine, and let's talk about your thoracolumbar flexion. Thoracolumbar is just a really fancy combination of our two spines of both the thoracic and the lumbar. So around our ribcage spine, because remember, the spine is sectioned off into two different things. Remember, we have our cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacrum, and coccyx, which is our tailbone right here, and the sacrum is going to be right between the hip bones. So this is just a combination motion of the thoracic spine and the lumbar spine, hence the word thoracolumbar. So when we're flexing, so let's say we're sitting on the ground, our legs are stretched, and we're trying to reach for our toes. I can't do this, by the way. I cannot reach for my toes. I am super inflexible. Unflexible? Not flexible? I blame the hours of sitting on the computer. My hamstrings are tight, baby. I can't even touch my toes, but I've just never been really athletic or sporty in that sense, or flexible. Robo says, I mean a giraffe has just as many vertebrae as we do? What? Hold on. This is important. Giraffe spine. Oh, they're just chunky. I want chunky. What? I want chunky vertebra. They're super long. Holy heck. I'm sorry to whoever's on my study guide, but look at this. I give it 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I can't do it. Anyway, very long boils. Anyway, so for thoracolumbar flexion, what's going to happen is the same thing with cervical. So if we're moving forward, we're going to have an oh no. Remember, we just said that the OA joint, the occipital lanceol joint, is our only convex concave surface that we have, correct? So everything else is going to be tilting or it's going to be gliding. So for this case, for the thoracolumbar, the thoracic and lumbar facets, which are these bad boys right here, the joints, are going to be outgliding. So as we flex our back, we're going to have an outglide of these joints. And that makes sense. Up, 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 up. And when we say upglide again, that's going to be a superior, so going up, and an anterior, which is going like to the front, which the anterior is front and posterior is reverse back. So our upglide is going to be a superior and anterior glide. So now let's talk about thoracolumbar extension. So this is just going to be the opposite. So if we're bringing our back, sorry, if we're bringing our thoracolumbar posteriorly, we're gonna have a downward glide of the facet joints right here, okay? And what does down glide mean again? We gotta think of the two motions. We gotta think of inferior, so it's going down, and posteriorly, so it's going back. So moving on, let's talk about thoracolumbar rotation. So this is where it splits. We can't really group thoracolumbar together. The thoracic spine is going to move differently than the lumbar spine, so let's break it up, okay? So thoracic spine is going to have a contralateral glide. So for this glide, and let's say we move to the right, so what's going to happen is that even though we're rotating to the right, our thoracic spine is moving to the left, hence the word contralateral. So if we're moving to the left and we're just focusing on the thoracic spine, it's going to have a contralateral glide, so the right side is actually going to be the one that's gliding and moving. It honestly sounds a little bit weird. I wish I could use an example showing my hands again, but I can't think of it right now. I'm so sorry, Cubs. Just believe me when I say it, okay? Okay. And then the lumbar spine, so it's going to have the ipsilateral facets are going to separate. So ipsilateral, we said, is the same side. So if we're rotating to the right and we're just focusing on our lumbar spine, to the right, it's going to have the same side facets are going to be separating. And when they separate, this is not like, oh my gosh, my back is going. This separation can be like a distraction or even a gapping of the spine. And the opposite side is going, or the contralateral side, is going to approximate, and it's going to compress with the tilt. So if we rotate to the right, our right side is going to widen or get distracted or gap, while the left side is going to compress with that tilt. Again, I wish I could show you, but let's kind of put this idea and concept all together. So let's actually rotate to the left. So what's happening with my thoracic spine when I rotate to the left? Remember, it's going to have an opposite glide. So though I'm rotating to the left, I'm going to have a right thoracic spine glide. Yeah. And if I'm rotating to the left with the lumbar spine, that same side that I'm rotating to, those facet joints on my left side are going to gap or open up, while the opposite side are going to compress with tilting. And I guess we could talk about that a little bit more, I think, later in the study guide and maybe have a better visual. Alright, and last motion for the thoracolumbar lateral flexion. So again, lateral flexion is just our side bending. You know how we just did cervical lateral flexion, bringing our ear to our shoulder. Let's just talk about the whole hecking body just going, okay? So let's say we're standing up straight and I'm like, okay, with your hands by your side, can you reach for like your ankle? And so you start doing this lateral flexion motion. So what's going to happen in the both spines, so thoracic spine and lumbar spine is that the facets are going to have the same side ipsilateral down glide and a contralateral up glide. So it's kind of like, wait, what? Huh? Why are they moving like this? Well, think about it. Let's lean. So as we're leaning, that same side, or think again like a slinky, that right, or that side, let's say we're leaning to the right, sorry, we're leaning to the right, that same side is going to downglide, so all those facet joints on the right side are going inferior and posterior, while the opposite side is going to come on up and have a superior and anterior glide. And I hope you can probably indicate that through the photos. You see how this is coming, or going into a downglide, because it's going inferior and posterior, the facet joints. And don't think of it like this arching motion. Think of the facet joints, which are going to be like these bad boys right here, and how the direction is like in our direction, like it's facing us and it's going to that inferior posterior glide. That might be even harder to visualize. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But just know again, for lateral flexion, ipsilateral downglide, contralateral upglide. And if there's time, again, we'll talk this over. That's not a problem. So let's talk about the axial spine as a whole. So, hold on. Because I want to keep it at 200 zoom, because I feel like it's easier to read without like having to open this up completely. So for the axial spine range of motion, we have to understand that our spine again is broken down to different segments. We have our cervical, thoracic, and lumbar. So their cervical spine is actually really mobile. Like this boy can move up, down, left, right. It's really mobile, which is really, really cool. It's gonna have a lot of motion, and understand that facets, which are the joints that we see right here. Oh, you can't see that. The facets that we see right here in the cervical spine are going to be oriented in about a 45-degree angle. That 45-degree angle is going to allow us to have that mobility as well. The thoracic and lumbar spine, I think the thoracic is orientated about 60, and then the lumbar is 90, so there's not really much motion there. But let's keep talking about the slide. So again, cervical spine is going to allow adequate motion in all planes. And understand that the AA joint that we were talking about is actually going to be the most mobile segment of the spine. But remember, the AA joint, the only downside to it, quotation marks, is that it does not contribute to lateral flexion. But it could do rotation, it could do flexion extension, it could do all of that, but not lateral flexion or putting your ear to your shoulder. Now let's talk about thoracic spine. So like again, where our rib cage is. So that's actually gonna be really bad across all the boards. And it's very, very low movement because hey, you have your ribs are connected to it, and your ribs don't hopefully go flailing around sort of thing. It's really important that our thoracic spine doesn't have that much motion, because again, we have to keep in consideration of our rib cage and understand that there's actually going to be a much flatter IV disc. So all those motions we were talking about when we were talking about our jelly-filled donut of the annulus fibrosus and the nucleus pulposus, those things are much more narrow, and you can actually see it right here, much more narrow in the thoracic spine than in the lumbar spine. So because of that combination of both the rib cage and flatter IV disc, that's why our motion is very limited. You see in flexion and extension, the most motion you have is maybe like 12 degrees. Then it's like less than 5 degrees, and then less than 5 degrees for lateral flexion and rotation. So again, pretty bad. And for our lumbar spine, it's actually going to have most of the motion happening in the sagittal plane. So right here. And it's where the horizontal plane, or like our rotation, is going to be most limited. Have you really, like when you do rotations, or when someone's trying to crack their back and they're standing and they're just doing these like wacky motions of like rotating their body from left to right like really fast, is that really their lumbar spine? Do you think like your hips are moving when you do that? No. If anything, it's again, your thoracic and cervical spine that's going to be moving, while your lumbar spine and the rest of your lower extremities are going to be more fixated when you're trying to do that kind of like sudden rotation or cracking back motion. The moment you bend over, your ribcage just shatters. My bones, they're made of paper. And anyway, here, let me get a quick sip of water. We're 38 minutes in, and we have 12 more pages to go. So I think we're doing super good on time. So let me take a quick. Yeah, I'll do that. Let's take a little quick sip, and then we'll get back into it. One moment. Okay. So, this is my fun chart. I love making tables and Word documents or Google documents. It's my absolute favorite. While you're blazing through this, yeah, I have to, but then I also have to review everything above where I'm not comfortable with. I'm hoping by 6 o'clock I'll be done with the study guide, and then the next 30-40 minutes is review, and then the remaining time I could just relax, because I mean, I don't care about going to the stress-related stressed. I study up until the last moment, but I made the study guide, and that's not to flaunt or anything. I made the study guide. I feel pretty confident, and I had this like really silly memory that I could just be like, oh yeah, I remember writing about this. Or again, with you Cubs thankfully allowing me to even do the study stream, it's like, oh, I remember talking about this. So it honestly all works out. So hopefully we can zoom through it by 6 o'clock. Okay, let's try to see if we can get 12 pages. Let's go. Anyway, I formatted this page beautifully, but let's actually talk about now the contrasting kinesiological effects of flexion and extension. So basically, this is just saying, hey, when we have these structures, what's happening? What's happening to them if we decide, hey, I'm standing up straight and now I want to look like those birds who dip their beak into the water? What if I want to flex forward? What's happening to the structures of my spine and the ligaments and all that jazz? Okay, what if I want to like bend my back backwards? What if I want to go into lumbar extension or thoracic extension, or just again my general spine going backwards? What's gonna happen with those structures? So let's talk about that, okay? So, for the effects of flexion for the nucleus pulposul, remember, our nucleus pulposul and our annulus fibrosus are going to be that jelly-filled donut that we were talking about. This is not necessarily the best image. I don't like it as much, but it still gives you a vague idea that the nucleus pulposul is going to be that jelly-filled center, and then right around it's going to be our rigid annulus fibrosus. So what's going to happen if we decide to flex forward? If we're moving our trunk forward, what's going to happen is that this jelly-filled center, when we go flexing, is it better if I show you like in paint? Excuse me. Our jelly-filled donut, right? if we decide, hey, I'm moving forward, then our spine, it'll follow our spine. This is spine. And it's going forward or it's going anteriorly. And what's going to happen is that because this is going to be compressing anterior and kind of be squishing our jelly-filled disc forward, what happened is that the remains of it are going to be splattering out in the back. And that might not be the most beautiful visual, but that's basically what's happening here. So when it says the effects of flexion, and again, a flexion is saying that we are moving ourselves like this. I'm sorry. We're moving forward and we're moving anteriorly. Our spine is going to go along forward with it, and then again that compression is going to happen, which is why the nucleus pulposul, which is going to be this aspect right here, our jelly-filled center, is going to be going backwards or going to be deformed or pushed posteriorly. So let's think about the opposite. Oh boy, you know me and my hacks. So let's say oh, now we're moving posteriorly. Yay! So what's gonna happen is as we move posteriorly, then that means these are getting a little bit compressed, and then that's why we're going to have that deformity, or this area is going to be pushed more to the front because we're going to be going into extension, and this is what's happening in our spine. Yeah. So that's why it's going to have that posterior anterior thing. If you have that really good visual, then you're absolutely set, my dude, you know? Alright, let's see about this. The same thing for the annulus fibrosus. Sorry, I apologize. Well, as we flex, it's going to be moving the same motion. You see how the nucleus pulposus is going posterior? Well, yeah, it's going to have a posterior side stretch. And you know how we did extension? We just talked about it going anterior. It's going to have an anterior side stretch. It's going to follow, but what's going to happen is that it's going to have an opposite side bulge. I really don't know how to really draw that out, so just basically know the opposite. So as we flex, our nucleus pulposus and annulus fibrosus are going to be deformed in some way posteriorly, but for the annulus fibrosus, it's going to have an anterior side bulge, while in extension, it's going to be posterior. Alright, let's talk about the effects of flexion and extension for our facet joints, which is all the things we've basically been talking about when we're talking about the cervical spine movement and the thoracic and thoracolumbar spine movement. Sorry, I apologize. So for the facet joints, when we're going into flexion, think, okay, we're leaning forward. These things right here, these facet joints are going to be separating. Or not separating, but they are going to be moving further apart, which is why it says the capsule is stretched. And it's going to reduce the articulate contact area, because guess what? You're not really touching anymore if you're flexing. These things are separating. If you put your palms together, facing each other with your, how do you say it? Your fingers closed, your hands closed, palm to palm, and you decide you're going to open up and try to form your hand into like a V shape, that's basically what's happening when you're flexing with your facet joint. It's going to do that widening. So think of the opposite. Now let's say, okay, I don't want to keep touching my head and toes. I want to stretch my back. I'm going to extend it back. I'm going to bring my back. What's happening now is that you're increasing pressure right here at the facet joints. It's no longer opening. You're basically pushing these bad boys together, and you're going to increase compression on these. So let's talk about the intervertebral foramen. So it's just these spaces right here, and it's going to be basically a very similar thing. If you're flexing them, the space is going to open. If you're extending your back, it's going to close. It just makes sense if you're familiar with the anatomy. But this, even if you know the anatomy, this is still a hacking review. Now let's talk about the ligaments in our back. Some of them are really fun, like we have ligament flavum. Like fun name ligaments, you know? So we have an anterior longitudinal ligament, a posterior longitudinal ligament, ligamentum flavum, interspinous ligament, supraspinous ligament, and a spinal cord. Oh. So let's talk about the anterior longitudinal ligament. So this is going to be a ligament located anteriorly. And when they use the word longitudinal, we can talk about direction, but just think about it being like on a map. That's a very long line. This ligament is very, very long. Same with the posterior, but the posterior one is located in the back, hence the word posterior. So for the anterior longitudinal ligament, let's say we're going to do the same thing. We're going to reach for our toes and we're going to flex our torso forward. What's happening when we're going into flexion, we're going to decrease the tension or slack because we're not stretching that ligament when we're moving it forward. Think of it like a rope. You have a rope that's taut, correct? Hold on. So we're still moving forward, right? With the flexion, correct? Flexion. And what's going to happen is that, let's say you have this rope, right? The rope is it's straight, okay? It's just a straight line. Here, let me get the line tool. Bam. Right? So let's say we want to make it into this picture. Okay, I want to bring it forward. So as you bring it forward, the rope right now might look more like this, you know what I mean? And there's not as much tension. It's loose. It could be straighter whatever, correct? That's the same thing with the ligament when we mentioned decreased tension or slack. There's not as much tension keeping it upright so it can relax. But now let's think about the opposite. So now let's not think about flexion, let's think about, again, extending our back backwards. When we do that, then we're gonna increase tension, because guess what? This ligament can't really do too much. Because this is its normal, hold on. This is its normal. This one flexion. So let's talk about extension. So you're bringing this ligament that's in the front, and you're trying to be like, all right, front ligament, come to the back. It's like, ah! You're going to be increasing the tension, and it's going to even potentially elongate because that's just not a position that it's in. So from normal to extension, and we're bringing again our thing back, we're going to make it super taut because again, that's just not its norm. So let me put this away. So same thing happens with the posterior longitudinal ligament. If you're bringing it forward, again, this ligament's all the way, is it not this yet? Right here. This is our posterior longitudinal ligament, and it's all the way in the back. So if you're asking it to go forward, it's like, oh, but I'm more of a back ligament. It's like, don't care about that. So it's going to stretch, or again, have that same like tautness as the anterior longitudinal ligament when it's going into extension. That's just, again, not its norm. But if you ask the back, or if you ask the posterior longitudinal ligament to go into extension, the same thing is going to happen where the rope is going to become loose. So there's going to be a decreased tension and slack. And that's actually just going to be a pattern for all the ligaments that are in the back. All the ligaments in the back are familiar with them being in the back. So if you bring the body even more back again into that thoracic extension, then you're going to be decreasing tension and slack among everything. But you will be increasing the tension or the elongation when you're putting it into flexion. So da-da-da. Now let's talk about lateral flexion. So lateral flexion is more condensed, but we're going to still be talking about the 5 structures that we were talking about above. We're just missing a lot of the posterior ligaments. So we'll talk about our jelly-filled donut, our nucleus pulposal, and our annulus fibrosus, our facet joints, the intervertebral foramen, and the intertransverse ligament. So the lateral flexion is when we like side bend. So for our jelly-filled center, what's going to happen is that if we're bending to the side, the effect of what's going to happen on the contralateral or same side, let's say we're bending to the right, the deformity is going to be pushed towards that, and that just makes sense visually. You have like a squishy ball and you're pushing it in, the deformity is going to go in, while all the other like other stuff is going to be going away. This is a small tangent, but over the weekend I got like these like fidget toys. Not over the weekend, after the last school weekend, the school campus was doing like a fun event, like health wellness, and do all these fun things and have like a little break. Good job, cohort. It's like, oh, okay. So, we answered some questions and we got prizes, correct? And then the prizes were like these fidget toys. And I've never really had a fidget toy, and I haven't really thought much of it other than like those fidget spinners. But they gave me this like ball, and I absolutely love the ball. It's so colorful. I was asking one of my classmates, I'm like, hey, what color should I get? And then he's like, oh, pick this one, and it's like rainbow beads, and it's just so fun to squish. And the reason why you bring it up is like, it's because it's just like the jelly-filled donut, because if you squish it, and it's gonna narrow or deform towards the side that you're squishing it, while the opposite side is gonna like bulge out and be like, I don't know, like the ball gut sticking out on the opposite side. So think of it that way, question mark. Yay. The annulus fibrosus, on the contralateral side, if you do a lateral flexion, that same side is going to be stretched or elongated, while the ipsilateral side is going to have some slack. That I'm not as well versed into explaining, unfortunately. Let's think about it though. If you stretch, maybe it's just a pressure. No need to get a stress ball. I'll grab and squish my spine. No! Don't do it, because the compression and I don't know, some other wacky things like your nerves or something. But that's more in relationship to the IV foramens or the intervertebral foramens. Don't squeeze your back. Anyway, So this one, I think it's just pure memorization because I need to visually see that happening right now. Because I'm like, I guess. Annulus fibrosus on the contralateral side is going to be stretched or elongated. Why would it be stretched though? Anyway, our facet joints, which again are going to be these articulations right here, the capsule is going to be stretched on the same side. No, on the opposite, because it's contralateral. Hold on, have I been saying this all wrong? Oh no. Have I been saying it wrong? Oh no. On the contralateral side, the nucleus pulposus is going to be deformed or towards the flexion. So if we turn this way and we're laterally flexing, it's going to be deformed towards that side that you're leaning on. So the contralateral side, let's say if we're doing lateral flexion to the left, then our right side, the deformity is going to be pushing towards that side, let's say maybe like more like gravity, while the effects on the same side, it's going to be pushing away. But that's still difficult to capture. But for the facet joints, it makes more sense. If you're bending, the contralateral side or opposite side is going to open up, while the lateral flexion, you're going to be adding compression because you are putting force there. Same thing with the intervertebral disc. It's going to be the same thing. Contralateral side is going to widen because you're not applying pressure there, while the ipsilateral is going to narrow. And for the intertransverse ligaments, it's going to be right here. Intertransverse are going to be how the direction of the fibers are running, and inter meaning in between. So on the contralateral side, there's going to be increased tension on the contralateral side because maybe it's just compensating, you know? It's like, oh, you're stretching that way? Oh, I'm not used to that. While the one on the same side, while we're laterally flexing, like on the left side, is going to have decreased tension and slack. And that makes more sense, I guess, to me. I'm so sorry. Anyway, let's talk about muscles, okay? So can we write this out together? So this is a really cool thing. So let's insert a table. Is someone here? Hello? Hello? Oh hi. Ohio? Fucking weird. Please let me say you. No way. Okay, you know. Okay, have fun. I'm studying tea. Alright, so let's put it below, okay? So we have 4 muscles that we're gonna be focusing on, right? Welcome. Oh my goodness, huh? Yeah, I have to ask who that was. I'm pretty sure I know who it is, but I'm just like, if they're here now, I don't want them to call me out. And anyway, T. I'll never be prepared for the F. Hey, don't say that. Be mentally prepared. I want to write that this does AA is involved. And then AA is involved only. And then we can put like a little line right here. OA and AA is involved. So we'll put a little line right here. And now let's talk about the muscles, okay? So actually there's technically a second row. So we could talk about splenius, cervicis, and capitis. I guess we could write across. We have the rectus, capitis, oh wait, they're both posterior. Posterior minor, and then we have the rectus, capitis, posterior major. We put that in caps. We have the obliquus, capitis superior, and then we have the obliquus, capitis inferior. I definitely did not spell that right, but it is definitely A-okay. I'm so sorry. I presume that's a fellow classmate. It is. because we will type to each other like in notes. It's like, oh, you're here? Hey, oh, hi. I think it's honestly super cute. I love the involvement. So we're just going to be talking about the action. So we need to talk about bilateral. Oh, hello? Like, how do I spell bilateral? And then unilateral action. So we have to understand. We'll put this in B. We'll put this here. We'll put the nope. We'll put this here. We'll put that there. We'll put that there. We'll put that there. Sorry, I was shook. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, so for the splenius, cervicis, and capitis, so we have to understand that we could break these muscles into the name and how they sound and whatever. Splenius sounds like spleen, but I mean spine. And cervicis and capitis is going to refer to where they're going to be inserting to. So let's talk about this a little bit more in depth. Oh my gosh, my speech impediment. Anyway, so splenius cervicis is going to be coming off the spine, and you see it's going to be located here on the cervical spine, hence the word cervicis, while the splenius capitis is going to be inserting it directly onto the skull, and our skull is known as like our thinking cap. I'm sure there's another reference, but yeah. So now that we talked about those two muscles, they're actually both going to do the same exact action. It's just where they're attached is going to be different. So bilaterally, when both of these actions or both of these muscles are contracted, it's going to go into extension, which makes sense. Both of these muscles are going to bring our head backwards. So now let's talk about unilateral. So this is going to have ipsilateral flexion, and it's going to have rotate. Oh, there's no winning. All right, it's gonna have ipsilateral flexion, which basically means that if I bend my neck to the left side of those muscles, because you have muscles, by the way, those same muscles on each side. You have a splenius cervicis and splenius capitis on both left and right side. So if I'm laterally or bringing my ear to my neck, or bringing my ear to my shoulder and doing that lateral flexion, unilaterally, those muscles on the left side are going to help with that side flexion, and also it's going to be helping with rotation. So as we turn our head to the left or right, I think that's also going to be ipsilateral or same side. So if we rotate our head to the left, those left side muscles are going to be activating. When you watch Tip's study streams and put it in the background, it sounds like she's speaking another language. A little bit of Latin. Anyway, so so let's move on to rectus capitis posterior minor. So this is actually going to be a really small muscle. See, rectus capitis posterior minor. A lot of the minor muscles are going to be smaller, hence the word minor. But for whatever reason, most of them, if not all of them, follow this pattern that the minor is always going to be above or more deeper to the major. So this tiny little muscle that I'm hovering over my mouse right here is our rectus capitis posterior minor. It's going to help with OA extension, so the occipital atlantal joint extension, which was a joint that we were talking about earlier when we were talking about cervical flexion, extension, and rotation. So yeah, so together, because you have again this muscle on both sides, this tiny baby muscle, it's gonna help bring the OA back, which makes sense because look at its attachment right here onto the capitis. Hence the word capitis right here as well. So that's gonna help with OA extension, and it's going to do ipsilateral flexion. So if I bring my head to the left, that left rectus capitis posterior minor is gonna be activated. Ooh, my bad. These are unilateral actions, while in bilateral, all of them are going to do extension of OA and AA based on attachments. Does that really need to be put into a table? No, but we might as well. Alright, so now let's talk about the major. So the major is going to be this bigger muscle right here, the rectus capitis posterior major. So what's going to happen here is that it's going to do very similar actions, but what's going to happen here is that you see how it's attached right here? It's going to have involvement with the AA joint. it's major, it's big, it just has that, again, influence. So with that, we have to understand that the posterior major is not only going to help with OA extension and ipsilateral flexion, but it's also going to help with AA extension and ipsilateral rotation. Oh my gosh, I can't spell today, I'm so sorry. So it has AA right here and OA right here, and I'll put a little space just to help out with that. So that's really neat and cool. So again, it's gonna help bring our neck back, same side flexion, and then AA extension. So again, if I bring my neck back, shouldn't that be a bilateral then? It should, I think that should be a bilateral action. Well, there's a space for a reason, not for the reason that I wanted, but that's fine. I'm gonna keep putting ipsilateral flexion, and then we have AA extension, and then we have ipsilateral flexion. So the other two muscles that we just need to discuss are the obliquus capitis superior and inferior. So the superior is literally going to be right above, hence the word superior, and inferior is going to be right below. So the superior is going to be here helping with OA extension and ipsilateral flexion, while the bottom, or the inferior, is going to be helping with AA extension because of its insertion onto there. So what are we getting from all this? Thankfully, all unilateral are going to help with ipsilateral flexion, ipsilateral flexion, ipsilateral flexion. And we can highlight that in like a cute, I don't know, seafoam green. Oh, wrong one. Okay. And so, this is going to help with extension. This is going to help with extension. All of these are also going... I love color coding, holy hell. Sorry, holy heck. This is going to help me a lot. Let's see. So all of them are going to help with OA extension with the, with the exception of the obliquus capitis inferior because of our origin and insertion knowledge. We see there's no way it's going to help with the OA because of its origin and insertion. There's no way it's doing that. Only the superior can. But the major, remember, which is a humongous muscle right here in all comparison to the rest of the neck muscles right here, that's going to help with OA and AA movement, and more particularly this one is going to be AA extension and ipsilateral rotation, which makes it like special and unique. So we'll put that in like highlighter. No, highlighter yellow looks too important. We'll put that in orange. Hi Sunny, by the way. Hi, welcome. Hi Tip, sorry I'm late. I just finished work. Are you cramming because you have an exam tomorrow? No, it turns out the exam is at 7, so I have an hour. My homework was treating you super well. But thank you for being here, I appreciate it. So I wrote a note here. If AA is involved, whether it's a major or minor, it's always ipsilateral rotation. Okay, all right. I'll take it. I'll put that into my Tipa memory bank. Huh? It's always same side rotation. A lot of it's same side. I don't really see like a contralateral, so that's also going to be something to watch out for. All these are going to be ipsilateral, so let me zoom out so we can have a better understanding of this graph again, and let's see if we can quickly review it. I actually don't want to review it. Just know the inferior is AA extension. Basically, everything else is OA with ipsilateral flexion. Understand major is a big muscle, so it's going to have OA and AA involvement. And the AA involvement in particular is going to be AA extension and also ipsilateral rotation. So now let's talk about these other muscles right here. So now we're kind of moving more down into the body, and we're talking about our spine. We were always talking about the spine, but you know. We're going to be more focused on the transversal spinal group. So we're going to talk about muscles that are deep to the erector spinae muscles, which is the I love spaghetti muscle group. The iliocostalis, spinalis, iliocostalis, longissimus, and spinalis. Those three muscles are erector spinae, so let's talk about deeper muscles to that. And those deeper muscles are going to be our semispinalis, multifidus, and the rotators. I'm getting a pronunciation guide. Hold on. how to pronounce rotara?
Rotators.
Yeah, right? Rotators? I don't think that's how you pronounce it though. It is what it is. Is this the when you leave everything to study last minute? No. I mentioned this earlier, Sunny. I made the study guide. I feel pretty okay. Not because I made the study guide, but I have at least seen the information at least once. Yes. So I feel pretty okay, to be honest. This was just me to review it, just to say like, hey, I spoke about this. But yeah. So these three muscles again are going to be a transverse spinal group, the semi-spinalis, which we could find right here. Oh, I forgot the semi-spinalis is broken up into a weird group. It's broken down to the cervical spine and the thoracic spine. So you'll sometimes see semi-spinalis cervicis or semi-spinalis thoracis. So we can see that right here. Semi-spinalis capitis right here. And our rotators are going to be like this Christmas tree pattern. Right here. Like they're making like, I don't know, little V's or like the little Christmas tree patterns. And our multifidus is going to be here. I'm so sorry. I wish I made this image bigger. It's been a while since I've been back here. I feel like we don't really focus on the back end Bearcat skull anymore. It's all upper or lower extremity. So I'm like, where is this muscle again? Yeah, somewhere in the back. Yeah, so the multifidus is actually going to be right here. So this big muscle that's also Christmas treeing, but not as much Christmas treeing as this one here. That's probably a very minor distinguish. I'm so sorry. But just, I have to understand that all three muscles are a contralateral rotator. So if I'm rotating to the left, it's my right muscles are going to be activating. Which is... No, we're not going to answer that. Anyway, more about the transversal spinal group. We basically need to know its action. So altogether, if we have all three muscles activate, it can help us with extension. So bringing our back. But unilaterally, the actions for each muscle is going to be a contralateral rotator. So, yay, just know that. I hope I memorize it. Yay. Alright. So the muscles of the anterior lateral trunk are abdominal muscles. So this is where I can also grab this handy dandy thing. And I mean, this one I'm not so worried about. So, hold on. Just for formatting's sake and for my sanity. Let's talk about these muscles right here, and then we'll clear the names out. So we have our rectus abdominis. We have the obliquus externus abdominis. We have the obliquus internus abdominis, and then we have our transversus abdominis. So let's actually remove this table right here. So delete column, spread this out, and then we're going to distribute columns. So bilaterally, our rectus abdominis is going to help with trunk flexion and posterior tilting of the pelvis, which is something we could talk about way later, Cubs. I'm so sorry. Ipsilateral flexion. So I'm going to bold these, and I'm going to color code these into orange because all of these should be able to do it, correct? Yeah, trunk flexion, posterior tilt of pelvis. Trunk flexion, posterior tilt of pelvis, correct? Perfect. And so this one is also going to be bolded, and we're actually going to put it back into that blue color that we were seeing earlier. So, so all of them, I believe, also do ipsilateral flexion. Except this one, which we could talk about later, provides stabilization during trunk motions. So now the main difference between all these abdominal muscles that we have is going to be our obliquus externus abdominis and then the obliquus internus abdominis. So what we need to know is that the external is going to be a contralateral rotation. Let's choose that. While this one is going to be an ipsilateral rotation. So this is going to be the same side, and this is going to be the opposite side. So we'll put that like a red. What color do we associate with rotation? Green? I guess. I don't know. I think of like dizzy spells or something. I don't know. So let's space that up. Let's space this up. And now let's actually talk about this now that we have it formatted. So we're talking about now we're going a little bit not as posterior as we were before, but now we're going to go more anterior. So the anterior muscles, especially in our abs, we're going to focus on 4 different muscles. We have the rectus abdominis, obliquus externo abdominis, internal abdominis, and then the transverse abdominis. So the rectus is going to help with when it's performed on both sides, left and right sides together. Or not just that one, but all the minus the transversus abdominis, because the transversus abdominis is literally just a stabilizer. So let's focus more on the first 3 muscles. So all 3 muscles are going to help with trunk flexion and posterior tilt of the pelvis. The internus can also help increase tension with the thoracolumbar fascia, but I don't think that's really as important to know about right now. The rectus abdominis unilaterally is going to help with ipsilateral flexion, so that just means side bending. So if I bend over to the left side, you can actually even feel that in your abs, that you feel the left side of your body at work. For the external abdominis, what's going to happen is that if I rotate to the right, and you can even do that in your seat, do you feel your left side going? That's because the obliquus externus abdominis, when you rotate to one side, the opposite muscle is going to activate. While for the obliquus internus abdominis, what's going to happen is that it's going to have ipsilateral rotation. So if I am, let's say, now rotating to the left, then I can also feel those muscles going. But again, it's a much deeper feeling. It might not be as prominent as the externus because, again, of how the muscles are laying. But that's basically going to be your biggest thing to know. I just associate it, and I'm like a really big alphabet ABC kind of person. I'm like I for eye, internus for ipsilateral. Bam, done, easy, thank you, good night. So yeah. This is talking about more just rotation and just again understanding that, hey, what does our ipsilateral rotation? Our internus, eye for eye. And then our externus is going to be the contralateral rotators, okay? Okay. So, one moment. Oh. Sorry, Rip just reminded me that Halloween's over and I'm like, oh shoot, she's right. My priorities, hold on. Wait. Yeah, I don't know. I forget how to change my icon. Maybe because I have streamer mode enabled. I'm like, huh? Alright, maybe later. Anyway. Oh my gosh, it's almost 6 o'clock. Okay. I didn't reach my goal. Okay, but we have to speedrun it. I'm sorry. Let me sip water. Cops, pray for me. I just broke a mirror. So my water bottle, because you know I love my water bottle. I love my gallon water bottle, right? But I was trying to grab it and I couldn't grab it. And I lifted my thing up and I'm like, there's something shattered under this. What is this? It's a little mirror. That's not what I needed right before the exam. No way. And it's on the board too. I'm so sorry. I love this dumb little mirror. It's just because I got lazy and crossing my fingers so hard. Thank you. I was doing my makeup poorly over the weekend. And I was too lazy to just do it in front of my my bathroom because I'm like, man, I don't want to stand. I'll just pick my little side mirror or whatever because I was going out with friends and I was like, oh yeah, I'll just do it here, whatever. But then my mirror had broke off and I'm like, whatever. I'll just use it how it is. And then I just never put it back because I have to hot glue it together. And I'm like, oh, just leave it here. And now the mirror's broken. It's so sad. I'm going to hydrating. It's actually really sad. So sad. Curse you, hydration. I'm so sorry. Let me catch up. Has this got anything to do with the booty shaking, as the millennials call it, twerking? No, this is actually just like bending and getting up. Yeah, please cross some fingers, and I won't cut myself. Thankfully, all the small pieces is on the table, so I'm just gonna get a vacuum afterwards and just like vacuum it up, and or maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't even do that. I'll just sweep it. Because what happens is that piece gets up this way, so I don't want her to cut herself either. Huh? If you have met your drinking target, maybe the bottle would have been heavy to crush the mirror? No, you don't understand. I'm at 5 p.m. It's 6. I'm at my drinking target. It's just so heavy. You hear this? This is against my armrest. It's just that heavy, even at 5 p.m. But it's also about 45 ounces of water, so I don't know. I didn't even consider peas. I consider peas every single day of my life. No, but it's okay. Peas is probably in the living room right now, so she's good. Anyway, let's get to it. I only have less than an hour, so let's go. Alright. Teehee. So the lumbar pelvic rhythm. So we're gonna actually talk about 2 different ways. And I know it says rhythm like dancing, but I promise it's not. We're gonna talk about forward trunk flexion from standing. So let's say if we want to go reach our toes, and then trunk flexion from full extension. So if we were reaching our toes and we're like, oh shoot, we gotta get back up now. Hi Glenn, hi, welcome. But yeah, just studying and I'm cramming, so I'm so sorry. Anyway, so what's gonna happen from forward flexion from standing? If we're up neutral and we're gonna be like, oop, I'm gonna flex my torso forward, the abdominal muscles and the iliopsoas muscle are gonna move forward, or move the trunk forward. Wait, abdominal muscles and iliopsoas move trunk forward. Gravity pulls the trunk downward. Okay, so the abdominal muscles and the I can't say this muscle. Iliopsoas muscle are gonna help with the bending forward or the hip flexion, like ipsilateral. The iliopsoas is going to help with hip flexion, and so with that, once you get into that motion, gravity is literally going to help pull the trunk down. As you're moving down, the erector spinae muscles they were talking in the back, are gonna eccentrically control the flexion of the spine. So they're eccentrically contracting and not doing the opposite of eccentric, which is I can't remember. Concentrically contract. So they're gonna eccentrically contract. With that, and about 40 to 60 degrees of trunk flexion, the pelvis is gonna rotate anteriorly at the hip. The gluteus maximus and hamstrings are gonna eccentrically control the anterior pelvic rotation. Yeah, I'm just gonna read that and we'll come back to it, I promise. But let's see if we can recite this. So the iliopsoas and the abdominal muscles are going to help bring your trunk into flexion as you're reaching. Gravity is going to work, and once you're at about 40 to 60 degrees, your pelvis is going to rotate anteriorly or towards the front at the hip. And the gluteus maximus and hamstrings are also going to be contracting, but they're going to be contracting eccentrically to help with that rotation, and they're going to put you in about 30 to 70 degrees of rotation. Sounds like a great substitute for dumbbells. Excuse me, sir. I already have dumbbells and they're underneath my bed, away from my feet, because I slammed my toe into one of the dumbbells once because I didn't put them away after like doing like a dumb workout, and I just never forgiven myself. Anyway, So from trunk extension from full flexion, so if we're all the way down here and now we want to get back up to standing straight, our rectus spinae muscles are going to be active at full flexion to provide stabilization, and it's going to also help bring us up. The gluteus maximus and hamstrings that we were just talking about that was putting us into that anterior pelvic rotation is now going to concentrically contract, creating a posterior pelvic rotation. The last 40 to 60 degrees of concentric contraction, the erector spinae, are going to help us to extend the spine upwards and bring us to that upright position. So bam. I didn't spell that right. I don't want to do rotations. You have to. So now let's actually talk about some clinical aspects. We're going to talk about 3 disorders, I believe. So the first one we're going to talk about is anterior spondylolisthesis. I hope that's how you pronounce it. So it's basically an anterior displacement of one vertebra on the other. So again, let's say we have our hands into a fist and we pile one on top of the other. So the one on top is actually going to go anteriorly or to the front, and that's how your spine's basically going to look. So that's going to be, again, the anterior displacement of one vertebra onto the other. And it can occur due to this thing called B fractures of the pars interarticularis, which are going to be like these thin bone segments joining the two vertebrae. Most likely this is going to break due to repetitive stress. So what's also going to happen is that this injury is also going to be typically caused by hyperextension injury or repeated hyperextension activities such as sports. So if you're bringing your back constantly all the way back, and we just talked about that extension, and that constant extension creating that compression, yeah. yeah. That's why that injury is going to happen. So for severe cases, especially for, again, our anterior spondylolisthesis, it can injure the cauda equina. It basically means horse tail. And that is basically going to be the roots of our lumbar and sacrospinal nerves, which are going to form a bundle within the lowest part of the spinal segment. So how do I say it? So let's actually look at a picture really quick to show you. So I'm not crazy of being like, what do you mean I've been a horse girl all this time? So your spinal nerves, spinal cords, and all that stuff. At the end of the spinal cord, you're gonna have all these like kind of random spinal nerves, which are not random whatsoever. I don't know why I said it like that. And what's gonna happen is that they kind of like, they're like a horse's tail basically. They spray out. Huh? Whether or not you might be crazy seems like it'd be an independent issue. No, if I'm crazy, I'm gonna make it every cub's problem. We're gonna be dependent now. Hi Seiji, hi, welcome. But yeah, that's a quada equina. So with that, also with the anterior spondylolisthesis, an increased lordosis increases the lumbar sacral angle. So basically, let's talk about it, okay? So this is the picture he provided, and this picture on the left is going to be like the B's fracture that we talked about. So the fracture, again, with the articulation of the joints, it again fractures, so it's breaking off, and because of that, the anterior, there's going to be anterior slippage. So here and here, and what's going to happen is that this is a super severe case. But yeah, basically, you see how the rest of the spine is more forward than the rest of our body? That is the spondylolisthesis, which is going to be caused again by a hyperextension, a repeated hyperextension, or there's a hyperextensive injury, you know? Hello, Education Bear. Hello, my fellow cub. I'm Lieutenant J. Hi, welcome. So this is just his PowerPoint again, but like right here. And so let's read the notes really quick. So segmental extenders of the spine are going to be the multifidus, the rotators, and the semispinalis group. So basically our transverse spinalis group that we were talking about earlier. These 3 muscles, even though they seem small and minor, we didn't really talk about them much, they actually play a really important part about pulling and maintaining our spine into that neutral position to allow us not to get into that position of ever having an anterior spondylolisthesis. But they're not strong muscles, which is why, again, this would even happen in the first place. Let's talk about herniated nucleus pulposus. So this Oh, good, I wrote about it because I'm like, ooh. So what's happening with the herniated nucleus pulposus? Again, this is our jelly-filled donut, and now the insides are overflowing. So this is gonna create a posterior migration of the nucleus towards the neural tissues. And what's gonna happen is that this is gonna occur over times and like many years. Repetitive compression, tension, torsion, and shear forces, which are gonna weaken the annulus, which again is gonna be that ring that we were talking about around our jelly-filled donut. Fissures and clefts that develop into the annulus are going to allow for the nucleus pulposal to just basically leak out. And if it starts leaking out and it starts pushing, it's going to make the surrounding weaker. So, if the annular fibers are already weakened, I put lidding? What the heck is lidding? A lifting movement involving flexion and twisting can actually injure the weakened wall to the extent that the nucleus can migrate posterior, placing pressure onto the nerve roots. And if you're familiar with like injuries involving nerve roots and any kind of pressure, you might feel like tingling, you might feel like a sharpness of pain. Nerve pain? Not fun, by the way. But this nerve pain you actually might have heard of as sciatica. So again, this kind of weakening and this posterior migration of the nucleus pulposa will typically result into severe pain down the leg, or as you may know again as sciatica, and changes in corresponding dermatomes, myotomes, and reflexes, which we talked about in another stream of how certain nerve roots will help innervate a certain area or help with a certain action, like let's say elbow flexion or wrist flexion or etc. etc. Oh, we have actually, okay, yeah, so we actually have two more disorders that we can talk about. So we can talk about degenerative joint disease, or degenerative joint disc disease. What's going to happen with this is that, I'm so sorry I don't have a picture, this is going to be black and white reading, unfortunately. It's going to be excessive narrowing of the intervertebral disc space, which can cause narrowing of the lateral foramen and central canal, causing compressions of the facet joints, nerve roots, or the quadrata equina. So our jelly-filled, donut is no longer as fluffy as it was. It's thinning out. Hence a degenerative disc disease. And our joints kind of basically wear and tear over the age, so that's not something to look forward to. But yeah, it can begin in the second decade, so that means it can happen into our 20s, but can affect people in the third or fourth decade, so people in their 30s or 40s. Most adults, 30 to 70% of adults have some detectable signs of degenerative joint or disc disease, but most are asymptomatic, meaning that they're not showing signs, but they have it. So risk factors for DJD, for short, is going to be genetics, advanced age, occupation, because maybe you're having a lot of stress and you're doing a lot of lifting in your occupation, your body size, because again, the bigger you are, the more stress you put onto your body, and which may actually help influence and increase this risk, and long-term exposure to vibration. So a lot of truck drivers are actually prone to degenerative disc disease because of the vibration that they're having in their trucks. So excessive mechanic loading can initiate the process, and basically it's going to tear into the annulus and It is believed that controlled loading and unloading that occurs through therapeutic interventions such as traction and exercise may improve hydration and improve the mechanical environment as well as the biomechanical environment, reducing the vicious cycle of inflammation and further degeneration. Alright, and then our last thing is scoliosis. So functional scoliosis can be corrected by an active shift in posture. A structural scoliosis can't. So that goes into a whole separate category of scoliosis and how it can be categorized. But basically, if you have structural scoliosis and it cannot be changed by some kind of modality, exercise, a cast, is that what they call it? Basically, you will need surgery to fix it. So 80% of structural scoliosis are idiopathic, which means that I'm pretty sure that just means there's no cause for it exactly. There's no reason. It just kind of happens. But for whatever reason, it's actually going to affect females 4 times more than males. Scoliosis may occur due to abnormal vertebral growth, especially during the growth spurt. The deformity is named by the side of the convexity of the curve. A deformity that is convex to the right in the thoracic spine and convex to the left in the lumbar spine is called a right thoracic, left lumbar scoliosis. So as we see, right thoracic spine, left lumbar spine, hence the name right thoracic. It just follows the direction, so that's nothing too worrying. And that the deformity involves a coupling pattern that involves lateral flexion with contralateral rotation to the thoracic curve with the convexity on the right and this one. Okay, scoliosis. And so the degree of lateral bend is measured on the radiograph using the Cobb angle, which you can see here. The Cobb angle is going to measure the degree of the lateral bend of the spinal curvature associated with scoliosis. Children with a Cobb angle of 40 degrees or less are typically braced and receive physical therapy because it's something that we can change. You know, kids are growing. It's best to do scoliosis screening in 6th grade prior to puberty so the curves can be braced down during the growth spurt, which is typically when the curve gets worse if it's not braced. If people have a Cobb angle or the curves are more than 50 degrees, it's typically candidates for surgery, which is normally performed after the growth spurt. Bracing in combination with exercise has been found to significantly reduce scoliotic curves, as has surgery. So basically, there's a lot of people who are like, I hate surgery, I never want to do surgery, da 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 da. Great, don't worry. There's most of the time for a lot of things, especially with scoliosis, but it depends on what kind of scoliosis you have. There's a lot of conservative treatments where you don't have to do surgical approaches, but it's just basically saying like, hey, it's the same thing. You will get the same results, and you can get it's just not as fast as surgery. So this is not really a part of my study guide. This is something he started talking about in class, about basically if we were to cut or get like an inside cross-sectional view of our hand, this would be like our carpal bones, and then here are the muscles here. Know the picture and remember on the slide. If a muscle is in a particular quadrant, it tells you what that muscle does in a medial or lateral axis. If the muscle is posterior, I lost it. I just real lost it. LMAO. That was me basically saying, hey, I couldn't type fast enough. So it's saying in the anterior posterior aspect, you're a radial deviator. Okay, so this is like your palm, this is the back of your palm, this is medial, so towards your pinky, and it's saying medial towards your pinky in anatomical position, so your palms are out, and so your pinky is most medial or most closest to your midline, and then your thumb is your most lateral. I don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't think this is it, Chief. I don't think this is it. No elbow flexors. See slide 39. Peak force production. Which elbow has the greatest mechanical advantage? Okay, brachioradialis. Common concept for pronators and supinators. Workhorse. What the heck did I write? Elbow flexion is for brachialis. Active no matter what position the forearm is and how heavy or fast the load is. Or what is the workhorse of elbow flexion? And that's going to be brachialis. But which elbow flexor has the greatest mechanical advantage? That's going to be brachioradialis. What is the workhorse of pronators? Pronator quadratus. Pronator teres would be more active with larger loads. Supinator, supinate. Wait, for supination, it's the muscle of supinator. Okay. Alright, I'm not gonna. What the? Tippa, please. Pass Tippa, please. Alright, so now that I'm done with the study guide, 20 minutes behind schedule, let's actually kind of briefly review some things that I just want to touch about, and hopefully in the next 20 minutes we can actually like super wrap it up. So let's talk about the arthrokinematics of the SC joint. Basically, I probably beat the workhorse to heck and back with the concave convex rule, but understanding that the SC joint, which is going to be our sternum and clavicle or our collarbone, are going to be, they're both saddle joints, so they have a concave and convex surface, and what's going to happen here is that they're going to have different surfaces articulated depending on what motion you're doing. So the SC joint is going to have 3 degrees of freedom. It's going to do elevation and depression, so it's going to raise your collarbone up and down. It's going to have protraction, retraction, put the collarbone forward or back, and it's also going to have posterior rotation, but we won't really talk about that too much. Let's actually just focus on the two main movements of elevation, depression, protraction, retraction. So what's going to happen is that when you're doing elevation, depression, what's happening is that this convex surface is moving on this concave surface. So if you see the purple to purple, and now just think of that collarbone moving up and down is going to be this up and down convex surface moving into this indent right here. And so because the convex surface is moving on a concave surface, it's going to have an opposite rolling glide. So like a superior roll because it's elevating, but an inferior glide because it's opposite because it's convex on concave. Now, a concave surface moving on a convex is going to happen with protraction and retraction. So if you put your shoulder, like I think the best way to put this is if you were to stick your hand out into a fist and just where you're sitting or standing and you decide to like punch, that's protraction. That's the movement of protraction, and then retraction would just be the opposite. Protraction and retraction are going to involve a concave surface moving on a convex surface. So yeah. ST or scapular-thoracic joint motions are going to be combined motions of the SC and AC joint. So the scapular, or scapular, sternoclavicular joint and the acromioclavicular joints. Both of those joints combined are going to create the ST or the scapular-thoracic joint motion. And basically, if we know elevation, abduction, and upwards rotations, if we know those three, we're going to actually know 6 because basically you just know the opposite of these 3 and we could do the opposite motion. So for elevation, it's going to be a downward rotation and elevation. That sounds weird, but if you were just to do clavicle elevation, the scalp would go upward, so you just have upward rotation, and you don't really want that. So hand in and scapula up, and you're gonna have ST elevation, or this is gonna be going upwards. Abduction is to bring away from midline. So we're gonna have clavicle protraction, so again, that punching out motion we're talking about, and scapular IR rotation. And so what's going to happen is that the protraction is going to bring it away from the midline, and the internal rotation is going to bring it in or tilt the scapula in. Hence you see these like 3 images where it was here, it tilts internally, and then it ends up here, and that's going to be ST abduction. Hi Lim, hi, welcome. Sorry, I'm like speedrunning. I'm like, cool. And for ST upward rotation, we're gonna have clavicular elevation and scapular upward rotation. So why is this different from this? Because scapular downward rotations are needed for elevation because we just want to bring the scapula up, not to the side, just up. While an upward rotation, we need that actual scapula going upward, rotating in an upwards rotation and elevation to accomplish the motion of upward rotation. Study catch up any percent? Honestly, this was talking about the shoulder and the concave convex rule. Got it. Why are these things important? I hate the 6 principles, but I'll read it and I won't know what it's saying, but okay. So for the 6 principles, basically about your arm movement. So there's a 2-to-1 ratio of movement of the glenoid-humeral and the scapular-thoracic motion. So for example, if you have like 120 degrees of motion in the glenoid-humeral, or your arm or your shoulder moving, you're going to have about 60 in the ST or the scapular-thoracic motion. The second principle is that 60 degrees of upward rotation in the SC joint from SC elevation and AC upward rotation. So if you're doing upwards rotation, I don't know if it's saying that the max, but there's going to be 60 degrees of upward rotation with this combined motion that we were just talking about earlier. Our third principle is to understand that the clavicle retracts at the SC joint during abduction. So while we are bringing the arm away from us in abduction, the clavicle will retract or separate or slightly go away. There will be a distance between them, which can be visualized if you're familiar with bones. I'm so sorry. The fourth principle is going to be that the AC joint, our acromioclavicular joint, is going to posteriorly tilt and may externally rotate the scapula at full abduction. So our AC joint, which is literally this, A for the acromion, C for the clavicle in this joint or articulation right here, it's saying it's going to posteriorly tilt, so go backwards tilting, and may externally rotate at full abduction. So there just might be a rotation and it goes backwards. Okay, yay! Number 5, clavicle posteriorly rotates during abduction. So, okay, that's just gonna go with 4. Everything's just posteriorly rotating as we're abducting. And then the glenoid humeral is gonna externally rotate during abduction. Sure. Yeah, okay, so things are going back. And then AC joint might do both posterior and externally rotate at abduction. Clavicle is just going to rotate, and we kind of talked about that a little bit when we were talking about the SC joint motion, so that makes sense. And the glenoid humeral is going to externally rotate during abduction. So AC is just a 2-in-1. Nice. Know about other notable muscles, so just know all the muscles kind of in the front are shoulder flexors. Your pec major is going to help with shoulder flexion and extension, so from shoulder flexion at 90 to 100 degrees. The sternal head is going to help from that 100 or 90 to 100 degrees into neutral, so if you have your arm straight up, the sternal head is going to help bring it down to neutral or to your side. Working together, your pec major, so like your booba muscles, are going to help with adduction, so bringing your arms together or your shoulders together, internal rotate, and horizontal adduction. We also have some other muscles that are scapular stabilizers, so anything that kind of interacts, hovers over, even like the little hover hand, that counts as a scapular stabilizer, and that could be your trapezius, your serratus anterior, your levator scapulae, your latissimus dorsi, and your rhomboids. Alright, this is what I need to remember. So, MCL is going to be your medial collateral ligament, and we're also going to talk about lateral collateral ligament, the LCL, and these are all going to be ligaments on your muscles, your elbow. So for the MCL, you're going to have 3 bands. We have the anterior, posterior, and transverse band, and we can see that right here. Look right here. This is all the medial collateral ligament. This is going to be the anterior part, the one that goes more diagonal. The transverse part that's more going horizontal is going to be this, and then we have your posterior part here. Mr. Asher, hi, what's taut? Think of the word like tight. If that helps, because even me, I'm like, what's taut again? I don't, and I hope that's right. Oh my gosh, what if I've been memorizing it wrong? Hold on. Taut, stretch or pull tight, not slack. Yeah, so basically it's just super tight. Think of like a rope, and if you don't have the rope stretched out, it would, not be a straight line. But if you pull it together, you pull both sides and it straightens out, then it's taut or tight in that case. That gives you a better visual. Hey, welcome. Sorry, I'm speed running studying, so I'm speaking like 100 words per minute. So we have the anterior, transverse, and posterior bands right here. They're all going to be considered the medial collateral ligament. What's going to happen here with the anterior band is that we have to understand that's going to be our strongest and stiffest band, and that it's going to be a primary stabilizer of valgus forces or loads. And what is valgus? So we have a thing called varus and valgus because it has an L in it. Not really, but that's my way to memorize it. It's going to help with lateral loads. This is also going to provide stability through range of motion, and just understand the superior fibers of the anterior band are going to be tight in extension, and then the inferior bands are going to be tight in flexion. Sure. Posterior bands. It's band shaped, so you can see it right here, and those are also going to help with valgus forces or those lateral loads, and it's going to be tight with elbow flexion of 90 degrees or greater. So inferior fibers or the posterior part, both fibers are going to be taut in flexion, while the superior fibers are going to be taut in extension for the anterior band at least. The transverse band we don't really talk about. It's poorly defined, and it basically provides very limited stability. So let's talk about the LCL. That's a little bit shorter. So the LCL is going to have 2 bands. So I know you see 3. The annular ligament's not something in relationship to this. The LCL is going to have the radiocollateral ligament, which is right here, and the lateral ulnar collateral ligament, and together it's going to form this lateral collateral ligament complex. So we don't talk about the radial, but let's actually focus on the lateral or ulnar collateral ligament. This one is going to, as the name implies, insert into the ulna, and it's going to provide greater stabilization of various loads compared to the RCL. So So this band is greater than this band when it comes to various loads. So valgus has an L, and that's lateral forces. So lateral collateral ligaments are going to be good for various or medial loads. These are also going to be taught in greater elbow flexion. So a good way for me to memorize is that when in doubt, flexion it out, baby. Most things are going to be taught in flexion except the superior fibers of the anterior part, because those are going to be taught or tight in extension. Alright, this is basically the same thing saying, hey, what helps with what? The closed pack and loose pack positions, basically if you know one, you know the other. So for loose pack positions for the humeral ulna, it's going to be 70 to 90 degrees of flexion and 10 degrees of supination, while humeral radial is full extension and full supination. So what do I mean by knowing the opposites? Like what does that even mean? So the ulna, the closed back position for that is full extension with full supination, and you see, but that's a loose pack position for the radial, the humeral radial, you see, because the loose pack position, or the best way to like stretch it out and make sure that nothing happens if you're doing like any like mobilizations with it, is full extension and full supination. But the closed pack position is going to be for the humeral ulnar full extension with supination. Let's actually refer to this in the opposite as well. So the humeral ulnar, again, we said is 70 to 90 degrees of flexion with 10 degrees of supination. So the closed back position for the humeral radial is going to be about 90 degrees of flexion and 5 degrees of supination. So like these align and then these align, basically. We do like a little cross X, but just knowing that we are within the 70 to 90 range and 5 to 10 range for the supination. It's 6:30. Starts crying, sobbing. Alright. This is just arthrokinematics or biomechanics for the elbow in particular. We just need to understand that our concave and convex surfaces, when we're talking about the radial or ulnar surface of stuff. So the humeral or the humerus, humeral ulnar and humeral radial. So for the humeral ulna side, we have to understand that our concave surface is going to be the ulna, because we have this notch right here, and then we have the trochlea, which is going to be this thing here on the humerus, this little bump, not this actual bump, but this bump right here. That's going to be our convex surface on our concave. And if we're doing something like flexion and extension, what's going to happen is that it's actually the ulna that's moving onto the humerus. So that is why it's a concave moving on a convex, is why the rolls and glides are going to be the same. For the humeral radial, it's going to be the same thing, where the rolls and glides are going to be the same thing, because our concave surface is the radial head right here, while the capitulum is our convex surface. So it's going to roll and glide in the same direction if we're doing flexion extension, if we're doing bicep curls or opposite of bicep curls, okay? From there, basically we just need to understand that the lateral ulnar collateral ligaments are going to be taught in flexion, and that's basically it. That's something we already talked about when we were talking about ligaments anatomic. I'm so scared to get my water again. I am hydrating now. Alright, distal radial ulnar and humeral joint are a different kind of beast. It's actually not like a rolling glide, or it is a rolling glide. Okay, the distal segment is a rolling glide, but the proximal is actually a spin, like the spin without the A. So the distal radial ulnar joint is going to have a palmar rolling glide. Why? Excuse me. Because the concave surface of the radius lies on the convex ulna. See? Concave, radius, convex, ulna. And so when we're doing pronation or supination, in this case we're doing pronation, so we're putting our palm down. As you see here, palm is down. You're going to be rolling, gliding into a palmar direction, because palmar again refers to the palm of the hand, and we're moving in that direction. understand that while we do this as well, the proximal side over here, there's not really a roll and glide against the ulna and radius right here, but this is going to have a medial spin, and it makes sense because look at where the thumb is. The thumb is lateral, then you move it medial. The thumb is lateral, you're moving it medial, and that's what's happening up here with the bone as well, but you can't really see it because of the annular ligament, unfortunately. So another thing we just need to know is that the dorsal capsules are going to become tight as we go into this palmar thing, and as we're going into a palmar direction, the ligaments are going to go slack, because if we're already going into its direction, we're making it easy for those capsular ligaments, you know? But we're not making it easy for the dorsal, and that's why they're going to be tight. So the same thing's going to happen with supination. Now supination's not our palm down, it's our palm up. Like we're holding a cup of soup, or we're holding, like we're cupping water into our hand and we're like gonna splash our face or drink water out of it, or again hold our beautiful bowl of corn chowder. That's supination, and we're gonna focus on the distal end again. So the distal end again, we're gonna focus on the radius having this concave surface and the ulnar having a convex surface. So the concave moving on convex, and with the concave convex rule, that means it's rolling, gliding in the same direction. So the opposite of palmar, we're moving dorsal, so we're going to have a dorsal roll and glide when it comes to supination arthrokinematics. Understanding that understanding a lot of the wrist stuff as well, understanding what's concave, convex. So our convex roll, convex for the wrist is going to be the proximal roll, the first carpal rolls of the bones, and then the concave is going to be our radius and ulna. There's like a whole like convex, concave like iteration that you can do on your hand, but again, I wish I could show you guys, but I have such limited time. Means hi, welcome. Ah yes, the pronation of when we stay on the computer desk too long. Ah yes, that's definitely our hands in pronation. Yeah, I had to think about it. I'm like, you just said it, but I'm like, oh. But hi, long time no see. Alright, so sorry, I'm like speed running. I keep saying I'm speed running, but I'm still on page 16. So that's just basically knowing the different kind of stuff for the hands. We need to understand our thumb and then the degrees of motion for that. We have to understand that the thumb is, again, like the SE joint, a saddle joint. So our flexion and extension is going to be a convex carpal, so convex right here. Oh, sorry, carpal's right down here, I'm so sorry. So we have our convex carpal on a concave metatarsal, which is going to be our thumb. So that surface right there is going to be moving, because remember, it's not our carpal bones that are moving, it's going to be our thumb moving to flexion and extension. And with that, because the thumb is moving, it's going to be a concave surface, which is why the rolls and glides are going to be in the same direction. Because it's a saddle joint, remember, so now if we do abduction, adduction, this concave carpal is here, this convex metatarsal, or metacarpal is right here, not tarsal. Tarsal's for the feet. And then when we're bringing our thumb in and out, in and out, in and out, it's our thumb that's moving. So it's a convex surface moving on a concave surface, which is why it's going to have an opposite roll and glide. And just understanding the first carpal, metacarpal, arthrokinematics. Understanding all this other stuff about what's abduction and adduction, basically understanding that your third or your middle finger is going to be your landmark. Let's talk about swan neck and Budinari's deformity. So basically, you just need to understand the PIP joint, and it's an inflection or extension. An easy thing to memorize is that PIP will be an extension, because think of a swan neck. Swan neck deformity for swan neck. Swan neck is kind of, flexed back. They're majestic, beautiful creatures. Yeah. So if this is an extension, then the MC and the MCP and the DAP are going to be in flexion. And in Budinari's, it's gonna be the opposite. So it's gonna have flexion of the PIP, which means that there's extension of the MCP and DIP joints. So basically, you can see here, this is our MCP, our metacarpal phalange, PIP, proximal interphalange, and our distal interphalange. So all of these are going to be flexed while this is extended. You see this slightly going backwards. Let's look at Budinari's, where again, the PIP is going to be flexed while the other ones are going to be stuck in hyperextension. For swan neck as well, just understand that if this is going to be extended, that there's going to be a dorsal displacement of the lateral bands that we see here because they would be going upwards. Same thing with boutonnieres, where we're going to have a lot of band displacement palmarly, or another word for palmarly is volarly. That's anatomy for you. And here's all the cool ways to say different words. And then we're back at the typical cervical vertebra. Yes, 45, 60, 90. 45 degrees is approximately the angulation of your facet joints, or the joints right here into your cervical spine. 60 degrees for the thoracic, and then 90 degrees for the as you get lower into your lumbar, especially. Just knowing these things and knowing the functional roles. We talked about our jelly donut a lot. Super a lot. We know that if we're standing with a load, the pressure will be higher than when we are laying or sitting. And then cervical flexion, let's go over that just... Ooh, how much time do I have? It's 4 minutes. Alright. No, I don't think I'm gonna have time. Just know that the OA joint doesn't contribute to cervical rotation, and then the AA joint doesn't contribute to lateral flexion. Basically, good luck, have fun, future me on all this other stuff. I believe. I'll never forget you, Jelly Donut. Thank heckin' goodness you do so good for my back. Alright, gamers. I think this is it. I think I'm gonna wrap it up because I have my exam in 20 minutes, so I'm gonna take a mental break. I'm gonna recite basically all the cervical stuff, but you know me, I need to have my little spiel at the end of the stream, so I'm like, okay, I have to account for that too though, so heck. But thank you everyone for coming, I appreciate it. Oh, my exam is online, so it's okay. But yeah, my exam is in 20 minutes, which is why I was like, oh, I think I could cram in a 2-hour study session. I just got out of work too, but I'm really hoping that maybe for future streams for both my sanity and every other cubs is that maybe I switch my work schedule, because I get out at 4, but I was told if I come an hour early I could just leave at 3, so I'm like, this sounds pretty nice. Yeah, thank you for the stream tip, but good luck, you got this. Thank you. I'm actually not too worried about biomechanics. Every other class though, I'm super worried, so you actually may see me do another study stream soon, which is going to be much more fun, you know? Anyway, Erika, thank you so much for being here and letting me get away with study streams, because like I said, I would not be able to get away with this climb. So thank you for letting me get away with Twitch climbs. Best of luck on your exam. You can do this. Thank you, Dominic. Thank you. thank you. So with that, all time spent is fun. It's fine. I'm glad. Honestly, because sometimes I get worried about doing study streams and then I'm just like, I'm so sorry you have to hear me study. But this is how this is my nice 2-in-1 where I'm like, I want to hang out with my cubs, and I'm like, I also need to be responsible. But it is truly what it is. But yeah, if you haven't joined already, feel free to join our Discord as the official Cub Club, where basically tomorrow we're doing some anime night. So you're watching Chainsaw Man, Pop Team Epic, Spy X Family, Mob Psycho 100, Akiba Maid Ward. So that's super exciting. Please do check us out or join if you haven't already. Let's see what else we have. Our Twitter. I don't have a fixed schedule yet. I'm thinking I might come back Wednesday, if not Thursday. I have a lot of assignments this week, but I also have to study, so I'm kind of like, But this week I also wanted to try to play new games too, so I'm kind of like, when will I get to? But I honestly may just come back for a study stream, and I hope that's definitely okay with you cubs. We'll learn about stretching, so that would be fun, right? Right. And then socials, I have a YouTube, TikTok, and all that cool stuff. So hopefully I'll get to catch you cubs there. For sure. Let's see who we can wait. The material's dry, but you're not. It works out. Finally, a balance. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you. Sunny says, good luck, tips. Sending you my brain cells to you again. Oh, thank heckin' goodness. No. I get it. We're just trying to find someone to raid right now. There's a lot of people who are just chatting right now. There's someone playing a retro game called Paperboy. Someone's debuting. Someone's doing art. Someone's playing Puyo Puyo. Oh no, this person decided to BRB! No! Alright, Cubs, I'm gonna send you... My Twitch is acting up. It keeps saying like commercial break. And I'm like, huh? What? Nani the heck? Sorry. I'm like, oh, I have to go. I'm like, Cubs, who do you want to raid into? Do you want to see retro? You want to see just chatting? You wanna see someone do Ghost Watchers? I'm not familiar with Ghost Watchers. You wanna do someone work on graphics? That sounds fun and exciting. Everything sounds fun and exciting to me though. Poll time? Poll time! Also, let me get the raid messages going, by the way. So, if you're not subscribed, no worries. You can still participate in the raid with the Go raid with the berry emojis. And if you are subscribed, don't worry as I fight my bot. Thank you. And I fight my bot and it goes Go raid with the Tipanya. Yeah? Yeah, feel free to choose whichever, whatever. I am not opposed to anything. I'm good for everything. I just don't know what you guys would like to watch. This person, I'm not familiar with Ghost Watchers, but it's looking like it's playing like Plasmo, but maybe I'm biased. Maybe I'm biased. I'm like, okay, any 3D game with some wacky looking humans is now Plasmophobia. For ghost watching, we got 5 avid ghost watchers. Okay, I literally can't fight that. Alright, Cubs, hopefully I will see you definitely tomorrow for anime night. Gowraid? Go! Go. I feel like saying it like that to the bone. And that's definitely not how it's said. Anyway, Cubs, lots of love to you. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow for anime night. And if not, no worries. I hopefully will see you Wednesday or Thursday. Hopefully I come up with a schedule. I really want to like play something new, but I also understand that I have schoolwork to do. So maybe if I'm productive tomorrow and Wednesday, we can have like a cute little break. But you'll definitely see me Friday because I'm randomly off Friday. So yay! Maybe that could be our study stream, and then in middle in the week we have more fun. We'll see how it goes. But yeah. Thank you, Cup. Lots of love to you. I gotta go now because now it's almost 6:50 and I have to mentally prepare and get ready. They have my camera on, so I have to like anyway, I gotta go. Goodbye. Thank you. Lots of love. Thank you for joining the stream. I appreciate you. Hi, lots. Thank you again. Good luck with the stream. Thank you. Bye. Send lots of love to this person who I will say hi and bye to. Please. Thank you. They look cute and they're playing with this other one VTuber that I know only off YouTube, who's also super cute. And I don't recognize the third person they're playing with because they're dressed up as a meme. Bye.